know you had mentioned that, ICE isn't rooting out violent criminals, but is instead taking 5-year-olds. Since we know that ICE has indeed arrested violent criminals, and perhaps some of those statements could be seen as misinformed or possibly divisive, what would you say to that?
You're right. I definitely misspoke, and I knew that ICE was arresting some criminals, and I think I immediately regretted it because I knew that to be the case. But my point is that they're also arresting people and detaining citizens and people who should not be being detained. And I misspoke, and so I apologize for the misinformation. All right, let's talk about basketball.
Oh, now you're ready to talk about basketball. Once Stevie has been busted in a blatant lie, all of a sudden, he's ready to talk about basketball at an NBA press conference. First of all, credit to whoever that was at Outkick who pressed Steve Kerr on his lies and propaganda. This is what happens when real media is allowed at these press conferences. It's also the reason that Outkick and other conservative media aren't usually given press credentials to attend these doofus press conferences. But this is what happens when lies are met with the truth. This is what happens when the darkness is forced to come to the light. According to Steve Kerr, I immediately felt bad for lying. As soon as I walked off stage and grabbed my purse, I felt bad for spreading propaganda. Please, please forgive me. If you immediately felt bad for lying, how come you didn't immediately apologize? I don't know about you guys, but when I make a mistake, I do my best to immediately acknowledge my mistake. Last night, me and the wife were walking the dogs. It's like 10 degrees outside. I'm freezing my white ass off. I'm trying to get this walk over with as quickly as possible. And the entire time, my wife is worried about who's going to be dog sitting Oreo on Monday when we travel out of state for Chu's cancer treatment. I was impatient. I really wasn't in the mood. I snapped at her a bit, and by the time that we made it back inside the house, I was telling my wife, hey, it's my fault, my bad. I didn't mean to snap at you. For most normal people, that is usually the sequence of events. You make a mistake, a few minutes, maybe even a few hours later, and you eventually acknowledge your mistake. But with Steve Kerr, it took Steve Kerr days to acknowledge his lies. And the only reason Steve Kerr acknowledged his lies publicly is because he was pressed by the only reporter at this press conference that was willing to look Steve Kerr in the face and say, "You're full of shit." Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the main channels in the description below. This morning, I was at one of my nephew's basketball games. I was talking to one of my friends, and we were talking about this new generation of players in the NBA. Cooper Flagg, Con Knipple, SGA, Luka, Anthony Edwards. Unlike the previous generation, which unfortunately is my generation of NBA players, millennials, unlike my generation, these young dudes, they just want to play basketball. They don't care about load management. They're not willing to miss games in the regular season over a ferocious case of hemorrhoids. And for the most part, they want absolutely nothing to do with politics. All they want to do is play basketball. As we were talking about it this morning, it got me to thinking about Steve Kerr and how Steve Kerr is kind of the last of a dying breed in the NBA. Greg Popovich is gone. Never again will we have to sit through a painfully boring sermon as Greg Popovich lectures us on the emotional dangers of Columbus Day? Doc Rivers, he's pretty much done. Well, Uncle Casey, that's not true. Doc Rivers is still coaching in Milwaukee. Yeah, for now. With Doc Rivers putting the final coat of polish on the turd and running Giannis out of town, I highly doubt Doc Rivers is going to be coaching in the NBA for much longer, which means Steve Kerr is one of the only political activists left disguising themselves as an NBA head coach. Unless a miracle happens over the next week or so and the Rainbow Warriors trade for Giannis or some other star player to pair up with Steph Curry, the dynasty in Golden State is over. Over the next year or two, the Warriors are looking at a complete rebuild, and Steve Kerr is notorious for his inability to get along with young players. Hell, maybe he can't get along with young players because they want to talk about basketball, and Steve Kerr wants to talk about gun control. The point is, more than likely, we are rapidly getting to the end of Steve Kerr's career, and it can't happen soon enough. As a coach, Steve Kerr is one of the greatest coaches in the history of the league. His legacy is cemented. He will be a Hall of Famer. But as an ambassador for the league, as one of the faces of the league, Steve Kerr has been the drizzling shits. The other day, Stephen A. Smith, he was praising LeBron James for being a great ambassador for the NBA. Michael Jordan was a great ambassador. Kobe, Magic, and Bird. If he remains on his current trajectory, Cooper Flagg has the potential to be a great ambassador for the league. These dudes are responsible for growing the NBA. LeBron James and Steve Kerr, they've been divisive, and it is damn near impossible to grow when you're constantly alienating half the country. If we had an honest media, Steve Kerr being busted lying, it would be an embarrassment to the NBA. And with Steph Curry in the twilight of his career and Draymond Green doing everything he can to get kicked out of the league, the leader of woke men, he needs to go ahead and join them in retirement. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.